Hello and welcome to my Red Boudoir stories, where I want to tell you unbelievable forgotten stories about powerful women that took the power in the times when it was not allowed. Our first episode I want to dedicate to a real fairy tale. It's a story how a person can use a big downfall as the biggest push to grow, and how your biggest love can become your worst enemy. Every shade of her fate was bound to the name of Bianca Capello, the Grand Duchess of Tuscany. Bianca's story started from a young man, Pietro Bonaventure, a young Florentine, handsome, impoverished, and hungry for his own destiny. Around 1563, he left his homeland in search for fortune. He found himself in Venice, lodging with a fellow countryman whose house was nestled in an alley just beside the Capello Palace. Bianca, at only 16, was the city's biggest jewel, Venice's most stunning beauty. Yeah, nowadays it's not very conventionally beautiful, but it was in one of the dimly lit corridors of a church that she crossed paths with Pietro Bonaventure. Little did she know this encounter would shape her life. He was a man consumed with ambition, driven by an unrelenting thirst for glory, and weak to the call of vulgar luxury. The rumors of Venice's most exquisite daughter, the enchantress of the lagoon, had reached his ears. To win her favor, this commoner took a gamble, an almost foolish one. He stole some money, bought a silk jacket in a garni shade of crimson, paired it with a matched beret, and set out to find his moment with Bianca. And then one peaceful day, she emerged from Basilica of St. Mark. Her eyes met his, a single silent exchange that said everything. Beneath her lashes, just the smallest movement, the faintest yes, and their futures were sealed. Along with his ludicrous costume, Pietro draped himself in a borrowed name, and alas, so fragile it could crumble with the slightest breeze. Bianca's father, a man of proud ambitions, dreamed of marrying his daughter to a man of noble blood, one worthy of her beauty, fortune, her place in the world. But Bianca had been raised in a cage of opulence. She was forbidden to show herself at the windows that overlooked the busy canals, where the world could see her. Yet every evening, as the sun dipped low, she would slip into the shadows and seek the solitude of a small hidden window, a view onto a street where one man, one passion burned like a forbidden flame below. And he saw her, night after night, his gaze tracing her silhouette in the dark. It was inevitable. What was fate, if not the pool of two souls already intertwined before they even met? Pietro, a man of desires and dreams, fell for her like a moth to a flame. The meetings began, intoxicating, passionate. The night stretched long, filled with whispered promises and stolen moments, and 16-year-old hormones as well. But no secret remains untouched by the daylight, and then storm came. The fragile web of youth, luxury, and fleeting happiness unreeled in an instant. Bianca's body betrayed her. She was with a child. Fear gripped her like icy fingers. There was no escape within the walls of Venetian society for a woman marked by her passion, and the weight of her choices would cast out into the darkness. Exile, a fate worse than death for a young lady. And so, with every passing moment, their love became their prison, and the only key was to run away. The day of their escape arrived, and within it the storm that shattered everything. The fall from heaven to earth had never been so brutal, so complete. As Bianca stood at the altar of a roadside chapel, ready to bind herself to Pietro in a forbidden union, the cruel truth was revealed. She had been deceived, betrayed in the most horrible way. Bianca, a noble Venetian by blood, winced each time the priest said the name Pietro Bonaventure during the ceremony. The name, once sweet on her lips, now felt like a poison. The weight of it sunk deep into her chest, a silent scream she could not escape. But as the vows were whispered far across the canals, she was bound to a simple peasant man. Venice itself prepared its reckoning. Pietro had taken refuge at her uncle's home. Her uncle, Bernabeo, was condemned and died in chains in the dungeons for his connection, just the connection, to the runaway lovers. His life and death became a chilling symbol of the punishment awaiting anyone who dared to defy the Venetian order. It wasn't just him who paid the price for their escape. Bianca's had maid, a woman who had shown unwavering loyalty and helped them in their desperate flight, was also subjected to torture and imprisonment. This wasn't just punishment, this was a merciless retribution against those who dared to support law, that went against the law and morals of society. A huge bounty placed upon their heads, a fortune for anyone who could bring them back. Days and nights blurred together, each moment more desperate than the last. They moved constantly, always on a run, farther still. And they finally arrived to her husband's house. The family was in struggle. They had dismissed their only one servant, and guess what? Bianca, once the epitome of Venetian grace, now became the maid of her own house. The only healthy woman left in the household. She found herself carrying out tasks she had never imagined. Picture this. A woman raised in luxury who had never even learned how to make tea, now hauling garbage pails, cooking meals, and giving birth to a child at the age of 16. After her father's imprisonment, she had dreamed of freedom, but she had only traded one cage for another. The country, it seems, wanted her head on a platter, but for what? Her own choice of life? The house once was her sanctuary, now felt like a real prison. She could no longer approach the windows, as her name had become a curse in every Venetian town. The public demanded her surrender, and the scandal reached the ears of Don Francesco de' Medici, the most wanted bachelor. Francesco's interest in Bianca likely began with curiosity, and was fueled by her mysterious past, her beauty, an exotic secret that he wanted to discover. In an effort to gain the prince's favor, Pietro, ever the strategist, intentionally introduced him to Bianca, fueling the intrigue between them. From the hands of her father, then to husband, Bianca was passed like a toy until she was claimed by the Medici, the most powerful family in Florence. A new game had begun. Don Francesco smoothed over the troubles of the cursed family with his influence. In a matter of days, their fate had been completely reversed. But it was not the same Bianca, no. No, she had changed. Bianca Capello was no longer the darling of Venice. She had become an embodiment of something far more dangerous. She wanted nothing more than to marry Don Francesco, but she didn't know that she got into the craziest family in the history of Italy. Yet the path was not so simple, of course. Her husband, Pietro, still clung to her like an iron chain, and the Catholic Church, with its inflexible laws, did not permit divorce to those it had once united. But the real threat to her future was Cosimo de' Medici, father to Don Francesco. Cosimo first ruled Florence with ruthless control, a man of power who moved webs of politics and cruelty with equal ease. His own family was no stranger to scandal. His daughter had been caught in compromising position and went in arms of her lover, a scene as intimate as the myths of Psyche and Cupid. For her infidelity, she was poisoned and her life extinguished in an instant. Her lover, after spending 11 years in prison, managed to escape, only to be hunted down and killed. Another of Cosimo's daughters, equally beautiful, had been married off but was soon caught in an affair. Her fate was sealed by the vengeful hand of her husband's execution. Even Cosimo's son, Don Garcia, was no stranger to bloodshed. In a fit of rage, he murdered his own brother. His mother, Eleonora, somehow managed to forgive him. But then Cosimo learned of the murder. His fury consumed him. He declared that he would not tolerate a Cain in his family and drove his sword through his son's heart. Both sons were buried together, their bodies lying side by side in a grave that seems to speak of the twisted legacy of the Medici. Bianca found herself ensnared in this madness, a family whose every move seemed dictated by vengeance, treachery, and ambition. Don Francesco, cold by nature and deeply suspicious, had initially dismissed the clever Venetian woman. Yet Bianca's beauty, her sharp wit, and her ability to seduce with the glance soon turned the tables. She had become his master, though he still believed himself her lord. But even as Don Francesco's heart swelled with affection, his father, even the calculating ruler, had other plans. He had already chosen a bride for his son, none other than the noble Archduchess Joanna of Austria, sister to Emperor Maximilian. Joanna, draped in the heavy folds of her Spanish court attire, carried the weight of centuries of tradition in every step. She was a vision of royal formality, an embodiment of the rigid Spanish ceremonial, a living spirit of aristocracy. And so Bianca, draped in a windmill of passion and politics, stood on the edge of a new game, a game in which love, duty, and power all played their parts. She had won Francesco's heart, but the rules of her family, of his world would not bend so easily. Bianca knew her place in a grand game. She was Francesco's slave, bound by the delicate thread of love, power, and control. She could not restrict him from marrying Joanna. After all, it was his duty. She only encouraged him, subtly punishing him into the arms of his destined bride. But on the other day of the wedding, all eyes were not on the demure Archduchess, sitting silently on her throne, a picture of modesty and restraint. Sorry, it's boring. No, all eyes were on Bianca, the woman who executed life, allure, and magnetic presence that could not be ignored. Look at these two portraits, Joanna of Austria, Grand Duchess of Tuscany on the left, and Bianca Capello on the right. On the surface, they were the same era, the same brushstroke of Florentine formality, and yet they could not be more different. Joanna's face is marble, no pulse, no spark. Her eyes don't meet you, they drift somewhere behind you, lost in duty and royal coldness. Even her gown, heavy, closed, almost metallic, feels less like a dress and more like armor. She's dressed for battle, not for life, not for love. And then there is Bianca. Her gaze meets yours, direct, playful, alive. She smiles, ever so slightly, as she knows a secret the world still hasn't guessed. Her gown may follow the same shape of society, but it breathes. The neckline opens, her skin glows, her present flirts across the centuries. One woman is a statue, the other a story, a joy. Bianca Capello knew her worth, and she knew that even the queen wasn't her rival. And we can learn from that. No matter how rich you are or how beautiful or poor, the most important is your behavior, your education, your character, your ability of communication. You don't attract influential men because you're not interesting enough, not beautiful, and plastic surgeries will never help you. The biggest courtesans, queens of seduction, weren't conventionally beautiful. Bianca knew she was the true empress, not by title, by the essence. Though in the eyes of the world she lived a life of a rescue, cloistered within the walls of the villa, her true power lay in the quiet influence she had held over Don Francesco. He lavished her with more and more attention unexpectedly. Her husband was a reason of a love triangle. So he was killed by a thief on a dark street. That's the power of Medici family. Time passed, and while Joanna grew distant, mentally removed from her husband, and trapped in the cold confines of her royal role, her daughters, pale and shy, lived their lives in silence, prayers the only emotions they knew. Bianca's life wasn't rather relaxing as well. She had only one responsibility: to maintain control over every aspect of her behavior, to be ever watchful, to never sleep. The game was delicate, and one step missed could ruin everything. But there was one thing she could not control: an heir. The race for Francesco's successor had begun, a competition between her and Joanna to see who would bear the future of Florence. Time flew by, but neither woman could seem to secure the victory. Both women were desperate. Bianca, ever the strategist, created the perfect rumor: she is pregnant. The whispers spread like a wildfire through the court. The emperor will have an heir. He will be so pleased. Bianca had played the game well. She was very good PR. And after the 9 months of whispered rumors and carefully calculated moves, the moment of delivery came. Cardinal Ferdinand, ever the companion and confidante, had been with her during the labor, his presence a sign of the loyalty she had earned from the church. She performed her role with grace and precision as always, but in that brief moment when he stepped out of the room, the drama unfolded. The baby she delivered was not the only child present in the room. A maiden, acting on Bianca's silent command, slipped a second infant into the mix, nestled in a violent case. The whisper said. Bianca had won. The most important is to win, not follow the rules. The rumors, of course, flourished. The story of the mysterious second child, of course, added fuel to the fire, but it was a small price to pay: victory. She had secured her place as the mother of the Medici heir, and in this treacherous game of power and betrayal, that was all that mattered. With the heir now firmly in her grasp, Bianca reached out to her father, Bartolomeo Capello, the man who had once hunted her like a prey. She wrote to him with a boldness she had never shown before, asking for peace. But after 12 years of hatred, they come to a truce. Through the quiet nights, Bianca and her father discussed the future. The plans were convincing, her resolve unshakable. Bartolomeo, even the pragmatic man, saw that his daughter had pulled herself out of the abyss. She was no longer a pawn, no longer a victim. Bianca was a woman who had shown incredible strength, both in spirit and in action. To the outside world, everything appeared perfect. A happy ending had been written, and the pieces of Bianca's world seemed to fall into place. But in the dark corners of the court began to reverse. After all, the saying goes, two can keep a secret if one of them is dead. And the mother who had sold her son, she spoke. But worse came. In 1577, a new scandal unfolded. The Empress herself had delivered an heir. The entire country rejoiced. Bianca, meanwhile, endured that would be some of the most tragic moments of her life. But no one noticed. Her classical beauty, once a symbol of grace, now betrayed no emotions. But within a year, the queen fell ill, and the tale of her demise was swift. Some claimed it was a sudden illness, others whispered of a fatal down the stairs while she was pregnant, a tragic and unexpected end. The truth, as with all things in Bianca's life, remained shrouded in mystery. And so, the woman who had once played the game of power, beauty, and ambition with such cunning and grace was gone. Her death was like her life, would forever remain an enigma. And so, after a year of waiting, Bianca had finally won. The Duke Don Francesco had promised her marriage, a promise that had been years in making. But as she stood in front of him, Bianca wore a ring on one hand adorned with the Capello crest ring, her heritage, and another one hand was empty. There was no Medici crest. And it was a big slap in Duke's face. Soon the two were married, in a quiet ceremony. But the people of Florence hated her. To them, Bianca was a symbol of all that was wrong with their city: power, manipulation, spoiled behavior, and even more. She was a woman. But Bianca had a plan. Her goal was clear: to officially announce her marriage to Francesco to the Senate of Venice. That was not all. In a move that would shock even the most hated political minds, Bianca proposed a bold request. She sought to be recognized as the daughter of the Republic. This title would elevate her above all the other Italian princesses. With it, she would no longer be merely the wife of Francesco de' Medici. She would stand as a sovereign in her own right, a force to be reckoned with in Italy's grand game of power and ambition. Bianca's mind, sharp and calculating, had always been her greatest weapon. She had carefully chosen her moments, played the role she needed. Yes, she was a prisoner, she was an outcast, slave, but it didn't ruin her. She wanted to use her marriage to Francesco to climb higher. Hello! But the most surprising twist in her calculated plan came from a man who had once condemned her, the Bishop of Aquileia. The same man who had read aloud the verdict condemning her and Pietro as outlaws in the eyes of Venice was now the one to bless her marriage to Francesco. With an ironic twist of fate, He crowned Bianca, elevating her status in a public, symbolic gesture that only deepened the intrigue surrounding her. The people's hatred for Bianca continued to simmer, but with every step she took, every political maneuver she made, an empress in her own right, touchable. She was a woman who had conquered the Game of Thrones with beauty, wit, and unrevealing ambition. When the Pope himself was trying to set on fire Medici family, she was the one who saved everyone. Bianca's response came swiftly, as measured and calculating as ever. She crafted a letter, one that dripped with charm, patience, and a deep understanding of power dynamics. She was clever, and the Pope, intrigued by a woman, demanded to meet her. I think it was something like to see a unicorn in 16th century. Audience that a few women of her time could have dreamed of obtaining. Bianca had once again proven that she was not just the wife of the Duke, she was an unshakable force, moving through the world with the grace of a queen and the mind of a strategist. No matter, she didn't look 16 anymore. She was more. She was the puppet master, pulling the strings behind the scenes. In a cruel twist of fate, during a feast, Francesco fell gravely ill out of sudden. What had seemed a life filled with plans and glory and passion turned into one of the suffering one. And mere hours after a violent struggle with death, the Grand Duke of Tuscany, Francesco de' Medici, passed away. The news of his death struck Florence like a thunderstorm. But this was no natural end. The rumors spread like a wildfire, mutating into tales too wild to ignore. In just a matter of days, the Duchess, the Empress in waiting, who had ruled Tuscany through her cunning and allure, had also succumbed to the fate of death. At the age of only 39, a woman whose life had captivated the world for nearly a quarter of a century, the death of Bianca Capello became an enigma, an open wound that no one could quite understand and no one could solve. The official story claimed malaria as the cause of their death, but suspicions spread almost immediately. Hello! Francesco's brother, Ferdinando de' Medici, was the one to take everything: the wealth, the land, the title, and most importantly, Bianca's place beside the throne. It was well known that Ferdinando despised her, and given his ambitions, many whispered that his hatred may have driven him to desperate measurements. In the early 2000s, scientists conducted an analysis of Francesco remains from the tomb of Medici family, and they were pretty shocked because they discovered traces of arsenic, and soon rumors began to swirl that Bianca's death was not from fever or natural causes at all. Yet the mystery deepened. Bianca's body, unlike Francesco's, was not available for tests because Ferdinando, in a meticulous effort to erase her legacy, had removed all portraits from the family collection and buried her in an unknown grave, ensuring oh my god, look at this baby, ensuring that her memory would fade into obscurity. Thus, the legacy of Bianca Capello, once a symbol of beauty, ambitious, and cunning, was systematically erased by the very family that had once embraced her. She had been a queen, a lover, a master of manipulation, but at the end, she was just a woman who didn't obey. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and comment this video, it means a lot for me. Hope you enjoyed and see you in the next chapter.